I asked them to please go and look at the wood and look at the wood behind the cross and tell me if the wood matched. They came back to the telephone and they said it's a completely different wood. The ark itself is about 100 years old and the wood behind the cross is maybe 20 years old. So I said to myself, that's it. This is an Aron Kodesh. How wonderful would it be to put this Torah in that Aron Kodesh? I noticed on the bottom there was a plaque. So I asked them, please send me a picture of that plaque. You see, I was a little bit nervous. Were we really looking at an Aron Kodesh? Or maybe it's some Christian religious object that I wasn't aware of. They sent me a picture and I looked at the plaque. And my jaw flew wide open. You see, the plaque read in Hebrew, Hine lo yanum v'lo yishan, Shomer Yisrael. Behold, the watcher of Israel never sleeps, and he never slumbers. And I thought to myself, how beautiful and how appropriate. Here you have a Torah that belonged to a Jew who left his Judaism, began practicing Buddhism, sitting in the closet for 50 years. And you had an Aron Kodesh that belonged to a priest, made 100 years ago, the loving hands of a Yid, and taken captive with a cross put on top of it. And I thought, wow, this Buddhist Torah is going to go into this Christian ark, and all of that will be used in order to bring people back to their Yiddishkeit, back to their Judaism. Hine lo yanum v'lo yishan, Shomer Yisrael. Behold, the watcher of Israel never sleeps. He never slumbers. He makes sure that each thing ends up where it's supposed to end up, and each thing finds its home. The story has a third part, very interesting part. We received the ark right before Sukkot. We put the Torah in. We held our breath when it arrived, hoping it would be a good fit, not too big, not too small. It turned out to fit absolutely perfectly. And we were so happy. Someone agreed to donate this beautiful Torah cover for the ark, for the Torah. And we put it into the ark and it fit beautifully. We got a call right before Sukkot. This lady asked us, she said, listen, I hear you have guests in your home. We have this girl who grew up abused and beaten emotionally, physically. And this girl needs a place. She needs a place to go for Sukkot. Can you please do something for her? And I said, sure, we'd love to have her. Let her come the entire Sukkot. Well, this girl came in. We'll call her Rachel. Rachel comes into the house. And she's looking down on the ground. She's shuffling her feet, not saying anything to anyone, not making eye contact. And you looked at this girl and she looked like she had been beaten up. She looked like she had been abused. And throughout Sukkot we tried to cheer her up. We tried to speak to her. We tried to befriend her. In the beginning nothing worked. But as Sukkot went along, and as Sukkot moved on, things changed. She began to look at us and smile and have conversation. By the time Sukkot was over, she was a different girl. It was beautiful. And she stayed after Sukkot. Sukkot was over Thursday. She stayed Friday, Shabbos, Sunday. She didn't want to leave. She was having such a great time. Finally, I called the lady who had sent her and I said to this lady, I have a question for you. I don't understand. I know she had a wonderful time over Sukkot. But how could a little more than a week change the terrible effects of abuse that's been happening for 17 years? Can you please explain it to me? This lady said, sure I can. And this is what happened. This girl, Rachel, she came to your house at the very lowest point in her life. So abused, so beaten. Her heart was completely shattered. But then, in the beginning of Sukkot, you told the story of the Sefer Torah and the Aron Kodesh. And she was very moved. That night, she waited for your entire family to go to sleep. And She came quietly down the stairs, 2:33 in the morning, and she sits in front of the Aron Kodesh, and she opens up the doors, and she begins to daven. And she davened the following words. She said, "You, Torah, that did not have a family, did not have a home for so many years, was not appreciated while you were there in the closet, were not loved, were not held, were not hugged, were not kissed. You weren't considered important. You were cast aside. And you are in Kodesh, sitting in the house of a priest, not being used, not being appreciated. Somehow Hashem made it that both you, the Aron, and you, the Torah, should find a home where you would be appreciated and loved and hugged and kissed and held. So Hashem, please let me find also a home where I will be loved and I will be held and hugged and kissed and appreciated." And she would cry that night, and the next night, and the next night, and the next night, throughout Sukkot. And by the time Sukkot was over, Rachel was a different girl. She was changed. A week later, she found a new home. And she wrote us a beautiful letter, and in the letter she wrote, "I miss your family so much. I miss the wonderful children. I miss the hustle and bustle and the aroma of food cooking. I miss the festivities. I miss the happy moods. But," she writes, "more than anything else, I miss my Torah." That's the story of Rachel. And this is the story of that Torah. So together we're welcoming this beautiful Torah back to the Jewish people. We'll hold it and appreciate it and hug it and kiss it and listen to it and read from it. Thank you very much.